In this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 biggest mistakes that I've made so far in my lending business and the lessons that I've learned from them. Hello friends, I'm Jimmy Frank Rogers with LearnPrivateLending.com, where we help you maximize the return on your money as safely as possible by making loans on real estate. If you're new to the channel, I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button down below, and as always, the links to everything that we discuss will be available in the description down below. So we all know everyone makes mistakes. It's unavoidable. You're going to make mistakes if you try to attempt anything that's worthwhile. And I like to think of mistakes as actually towns along the road that leads you to success. It's not a factor of whether you made the wrong choice and it's a left or right decision, you made the wrong decision and now you're in trouble. It's actually a continuous decision. You're on the road leading to success, and you have to go through these towns called mistakes to be able to get to where you want to go to. What I wanted to do today is talk to you about some of the mistakes that I've made so far, but more importantly, what I've learned from them and how I adjusted some of my processes and systems so that I don't continue to make those mistakes. So with these mistakes, I do have a little caveat. I actually didn't lose any money on any of these. I was actually very lucky from that standpoint, but I'm going to go into detail of how it did actually cost me some money as I explain these 3 different mistakes that I made. Also, please stay tuned to the end. I've got a special bonus that I want to give to you absolutely free. Let's get started. Mistake number 1. I made a second lien loan on an apartment complex. So let me tell you the story. One of the borrowers that I've done quite a bit of work with, someone who has a lot of experience, it's one of the reasons I actually made the loan, and someone that I know really well, has always been 100% honest with me, got an apartment complex under contract. Now, this apartment complex was being sold to him by the owner who had owned it for a long time. They were deciding they wanted to get out of it. And so the deal that they made with him was a owner finance deal, meaning all he had to do is come up with a 20% down payment. They would finance the rest to him over a year. And the idea was that he would be able to just make interest payments to them, and in the process fix this apartment complex up. It actually needed a good bit of work to it. And then be able to go to a normal bank, refinance the whole thing where they could pay me off and pay the owner off, and we'll go on down the road. It was actually supposed to be a very quick flip. It wasn't going to take much time at all. And I was going to make a really nice return on my money because it was so quick. That would free those funds up so that I could loan them again really quickly. Now, you can see that this was one of my mistakes. So let's talk about what happened. It was not a really quick flip. There were some unforeseen circumstances that happened that caused it to take quite a bit more time than what he expected it to. This was not his fault. It's just certain things happen like this from time to time. So what does that mean for me? Just to explain a little bit of how a lien works. A lien is just a legal right to a piece of property until that person who owns the property pays you off. And so the first lien was the owner, the person who owned the apartment complex in this process. So if everything had gone wrong, the owner had the right to sell the property or take the property back, and he didn't have to pay me. Being a second lien or a third lien or a fourth lien is the term is a junior position. That means that you are second, third, or fourth in line to get paid if something happens. So by me being in the second lien position, for me to foreclose on the property, if it had come to that, I would have had to pay off the first lien position, which would have taken up all of the money that I had to lend out for the whole year. It would have pretty much put me out of the lending business for a full year. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Even though it did take a while, the borrower was able to finally sell the property and be able to pay me off. And the only thing that it cost me was my money was tied up in one deal longer than I wanted it to be. Because remember, the way that we're making the returns that we need to make on our money is we have to be able to turn our money. What that means is if you can't do more than one loan a year, you're not making enough return on your money to justify doing the lending business. You'd be better off just putting it in the stock market, buying an index fund and just letting it sit there. It would be less risk and and more money. What I learned from this process is two things. Number one, never ever do a second lien. Remember our rule, never do a second lien unless you own the first lien. Number two, what I learned is make sure that you do your due diligence beforehand. I really had no experience dealing with apartment complexes. My borrower actually didn't have a lot of experience dealing with apartment complexes. We got lucky in that both of us were able to make money off the deal. We didn't lose money. However, we did learn a valuable lesson that whenever things take too much time, that means something's wrong. When things happen quickly, that's ideal. But whenever we don't do that due diligence, that's when it takes too long. And the final lesson that I walked away with from that deal was make sure that you know how you're going to get out of that deal, what's your exit strategy before you get into the deal. So I didn't really know what my exit strategy is. All I was thinking about was how much money I was going to make, and I wasn't thinking about if this goes wrong, how am I going to get out of it? So the second mistake I made was actually loaning too much money on a flip. Here's the story. Again, one of my very experienced borrowers referred a friend to me who hadn't done many flips. However, they did have quite a bit of money saved up in a money market. They were actually thinking about using that money for some other business venture, and that's why they were wanting to borrow money from me for this particular home that they were wanting to flip. It was actually a pretty nice home in a pretty nice part of town. The loan amount that they were wanting was quite a bit more than what I normally loan out. What they felt was because the home was in a pretty nice area and it was a pretty nice home, they could do minimal work to it. Again, they thought it would be a very quick flip, just redo some carpet, put some paint on the walls, get it back out on the market. If that didn't work, their plan was to actually do a full rehab, which actually was quite a bit of work. So that was one of the reasons they were wanting to borrow the quite large amount of money that they were wanting to borrow from me. The reason I decided to do it was, number one, I did like the fact that the guy had quite a bit of money set aside. If something went wrong, he had a lot of money to be able to put towards this deal to fix any problems. Two was that he was a friend of someone that I knew. He was a referral from someone who did have a lot of experience. And number three, frankly, I got a little greedy. It looked like a great return on my money. You know, a big, large loan, you're making a big, large profit. The rest of the story is, like always, there was some problems. They did the quick rehab to it. They put new carpet in, they put new paint, they put it out on the market for a full month and a half. And they didn't get anywhere close to the offers that they thought they were going to get. So then they kicked into phase two. They decided to do the full rehab. However, they've just sacrificed a month and a half of doing nothing to this property as it was sitting out there on the market. So that put them a month and a half behind schedule. The rehab, of course, took a little bit more time than was expected. And so, again, this is a common theme we're seeing through these mistakes, is it took too long. And so that's what's costing me money, because I can't have that money to put towards other deals, which helps me get the rate of return that I want. So there was a happy ending. They did finally sell the property. They paid me everything that they were supposed to pay me. The problem was the borrower in this case actually ended up losing about $20,000. Because they held on to the property for so much time, their costs were way higher than what it should have been. Things like the interest payments to me, as well as the rehab, was actually a little bit more than they expected, where they had to put some more money into the deal. The lesson that I learned from this is I should have been a better advisor to my borrower. I should have told them, hey, let's think about this. If this goes long, you are really gonna have to sell it for the exact price that you think you're gonna sell it for. You just don't have much margin for error in this. And even though my borrower's a grown-up, they're an educated person, they're making their own decisions, I wished I, as a lender and as a partner with them, had helped bring up some of these points instead of just thinking about how much money I was going to make on the deal. That's what I learned from my second mistake. So my third and final mistake that I made was, it was actually one of the first few loans that I made. The story was, I made a loan on 3 different properties that were more than 4 hours away from where I lived. Each of these properties, one of them was 8 hours away, so quite a bit away. The reason that I did it was a loan for a borrower that I did have a lot of experience with, someone who I knew really well. They had been buying properties online. These were auction.com houses. And again, they thought it'd be a quick flip, something really easy, minimum work, minimal rehab, and get it back out on the market. Everybody walks away winners. The rest of the story was, as always, things don't go as smoothly as you think, and it takes too long. The borrower was finally able to get the work done and get the property sold. It was more difficult for the borrower because they were having to use crews and contractors that they weren't familiar with. They weren't able to be on site and kind of watch things as they're going, so stuff got behind, which was another reason why it took too long. What it cost us was the ability to use our money on other deals. Again, time is money. The faster we turn a property, the more money we make. The lesson that I learned from this is don't loan on properties that you're not 100% happy with taking over. So if I'd had to foreclose on these properties, I would have been the one having to deal with contractors that are 8 hours away or 4 hours away. I was going to be the one to have to drive there and make sure things are getting done, which would have cost me quite a bit of money in just travel expenses alone. Remember, if you're not 100% happy with taking over the deal, if something goes wrong, you shouldn't make that loan. So I've promised you a bonus to thank you for sticking around and watching the video up to this point. If you'll go to my website, learnprivatelending.com, and join my email list, I'm going to send you absolutely free the Excel spreadsheet that I've designed and built that I use to analyze every single loan before I get started. I call it my deal analysis calculator. So again, go to my website, learnprivatelending.com, and join my email list, and I'll send my tool to you absolutely free. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button down below. And if you don't mind, leave a comment. Let me know what you liked about this video, or give me some ideas of videos that you'd like to see me cover in the future. I hope you have a great day.